Hi, welcome to all. Today we are going to discuss about international monetary system. In international monetary system, the money is the important thing. So let's talk about the money. Money is a money is a current medium of exchange in the form of coins and banknotes collectively. In other words, any good that is widely accepted in exchange of goods and services as well as payment of debts. The money have important three function. The first function is medium of exchange. The money used for buying and selling the goods and services. And second function is unit of account. It is a common standard for measuring relative worth of a goods and services. The third function is store of value. It is a convenient way to store the wealth. Next, international monetary system. International monetary systems are set of internationally agreed rules, conventions, and supporting institutions that facilitate international trade, cross-border investment, and generally their allocation of capital between the nation states. In other words, international monetary system refers to the system prevailing in wide foreign exchange markets through which international trade and capital movement are financed and exchange rates are determined. And the international monetary system is the framework within which countries borrow, lend, buy, sell, and make payments across the political bodies. The framework determines how balance of payments disequilibrium is resolved. The numerous frameworks are possible and most have been tried in one form or another. Today's system is a combination of several different frameworks. The increased volatility of exchange rate is one of the main economic developments of the past 40 years. Under the current system of partly floated and partly fixed undergo the real and paper fluctuations as a result of changes in exchange rates. Policies for forecasting and reacting to exchange rate fluctuations are still evolving as we improve our understanding of the international monetary system. And tax rules for foreign exchange gains and losses and the economic effect of exchange rates changes on future cash flows and market values. Although volatile exchange rates increase risk, they also create profit opportunities for firms and investors given a proper understanding of exchange risk management. In order to manage the foreign exchange risk, however, management must first understand how the international monetary system functions. The international monetary system is a structure within which foreign exchange rates are determined, international trade and capital flows are accommodated, and balance of payments adjustments made. All of the instruments, institutions, and agreements that link together the world's currency, money, markets, securities, real estate, and commodity markets are also encompassed within the term. Okay, let's begin with some terms in order to prevent the confusion in reading this portion. A foreign currency exchange rate or simply exchange rate. It is the price of one country's currency in units of another currency or commodity, gold or silver. If the government of a country, for example Argentina, regulates the rate at which its currency, the peso, is exchanged for other currencies, the system or regime is classified as a fixed managed exchange rate regime. The rate at which the currency is fixed or pegged is frequently referred to as its par value. Next, spot exchange rate. It is the quarter price for foreign exchange to be delivered at once or in 2 days for interbank transactions. Forward rate. It is the quarter price for foreign exchange to delivered at a specified date of future. Next, forward premium or discount. It is a percentage difference between the spot and forward exchange rates. Following are the main features that the IMS should possess. The first one is it should efficient and unrestricted flow of international trade and investment, and it should be stable in foreign exchange aspects. The third one is promoting balance of payments adjustment to prevent the disruptions associated, and providing the countries with a sufficient liquidity to finance temporary balance of payments deficits, and it should be at least try avoid adding further uncertainty. Finally, allowing member countries to pursue interdependent monetary and fiscal policies. The following are the main requirements of good international monetary system. First, it should be there should be an adjustment. A good system must be able to adjust imbalances in balance of payments quickly and a relatively lower cost. Second one is stability and confidence. The system must be able to keep exchange rates relatively fixed and people must be confident in the stability of the system. Lastly, liquidity. The system must be able to provide enough reserve assets for a nation to correct its balance of payments deficits without making the nation run into deflation or inflation. The first stage of international monetary system was bimetallism. The period of bimetallism was before 1875. The following are the main features of bimetallism. The, it was a double standard in the sense that both gold and silver were used as a money. And some countries were on the gold standard, some on the silver standard, some on both. Both gold and silver were used as international means of payment and the exchange rates among the currencies were determined by either their gold or silver currencies. Gresham's law implied that it would be the least valuable metal that would tend to circulate. What do you mean by Gresham's law? Gresham's law is an economic principle that states if coins containing metal of different value have the same value as legal tender, the coins composed of the cheaper metal will be used for payment while those made of more expensive metal will be hoarded or exported and thus tend to disappear from the circulation. It is commonly stated as "but money drives out good money." Okay, let's back to the topic international monetary system. Over the ages, currencies have been defined in terms of gold and other items of value, and the international monetary system has been the subject of a variety of international agreements. A review of these systems provides a useful perspective from which to understand today's system and to evaluate the weakness and propose changes in the present system. The gold standard was between 1876 and 1913. Since the days of the pharaohs, gold has served as a medium of exchange and a store of value. The Greeks and Romans used gold coins and passed on this through the mercantile area of 19th century. The great increase in trade during the free trade period of the late 19th century led to a need for a more formalized system for setting international trade balances. One country after another set a par value for its currency in terms of gold and then tried to adhere to the so-called rules of the game. This latter came to be known as the classical gold standard. The gold standard as an international monetary system gained acceptance in Western Europe in the 1870s. The United States was something of latecomer to the system, not officially adopted the standard until 1879. The rules of the game under the gold standard were clear and simple. Each country set the rate at which its currency unit could be converted a weight of gold. The United States, for example, declared the dollar to be convertible to gold at a rate of $20.67 per ounce of gold. The main feature of gold standard period was during this period in most major countries gold alone was assured of unrestricted coinage. There was a two-way convertibility between gold and national currencies at a stable ratio. Gold could be freely exported or imported. The exchange rate between two countries' currencies would be determined by their relative gold contents. The rules of the system was each country defined the value of its currency in terms of gold. The exchange rate between any two currencies was calculated as X currency per ounce of gold, Y currency per ounce of gold. The third stage was interwar years and Second World War. The period of interwar years and Second World War about 1940 to 1944. After the World War I in 20s, the exchange rates were allowed to fluctuate. This was the result of large fluctuations in currency values. Consequently, the trade could not develop. Once a currency became weak, it was further weakened because the speculative expectations. The reverse happened with strong currencies. Because of these unwarranted fluctuations in exchange rates, the trade volumes did not grow in proportion to the growth in GNB. Many attempts were made to return to gold standard. US could adopt it in 1919, UK in 1925 and France in 1925. UK fixed the pre-war parity in 1934. US modified the gold standard by revising the price of gold at which conversions could be effected. Till the Second World War, practically the above practice remained in force. The gold standard to which countries returned in mid-20s was different than which existed prior to 1914. The major difference was that instead of two international reserve assets, there were several currencies which were convertible to gold and could be termed as reserves. Apart from pound, French francs, US dollar had also gained the importance. Whenever the French accumulated pound sterling, they used to convert these into gold. The second difference was that the Britain had returned to gold standard with a decline in relative cost and prices. In 1931, the crisis began with the failure of branch banking institution in Austria called Key Credit Anstalt. Hard British, US and French banks did not cooperate. This could have a small impact on weight exchange rate environment, but French banks did not cooperate. Germans withdrew their money from Austria, leading to deepening the crisis of led to disbursement of gold standard. The fourth stage of international monetary system was Bretton Woods and the International Monetary Fund. The period of this stage was within 1944 and 1973. The paramount importance to the representatives at the 1944 meeting in Bretton Woods was the prevention of another breakdown of the international financial order, such as one which followed the peace after the First World War. From 1980 until well into the 1920s, the world has witnessed a rise in protectionism on a grand scale to protect jobs for those returning the war. Competitive devaluation designed for the same effect and massive hyperinflation as the inability to raise conventional taxes led to use the hidden tax of inflation. Inflation shifts buying power from the holders of money whose holdings buy less to the issuers of money. The central banks, a system was required that would keep countries from changing exchange rates to obtain the trading advantage and the limit of inflationary policy. This meant that some sort of control on the changes was needed, as well as a reserve base for deficit countries. The reserves were to be provided via an institution created for the purpose. The International Monetary Fund was established to collect and allocate reserves in order to implement the Articles of Agreement signed in Bretton Woods. Let's talk about the important functions of IMF. The first function is promote international monetary cooperation. The second function is facilitate the growth of the trade. Third, establish a system of multilateral payments. And last, create a reserve base. The reserves were contributed by the member countries according to a quota system based on the national income and the importance of the trade different countries of the original contribution. 25% was in gold, the so-called the gold tranche position, and the remaining 75% was in the country's own currency. A country was allowed to borrow to its gold tranche contribution without IMF approval and to borrow an additional 100% of its total contribution in 4 steps, each with additional strict conditions established by the IMF. These conditions were designed to ensure that the corrective macroeconomic policy actions would be taken. The lending facilities have been expanded over the years. Standby arrangements were introduced in 1952, enabling a country to have funds appropriated ahead of the need so that the currencies would be less open to attack during the IMF's deliberation of whether help would be made available. As we have seen, the most important feature of Bretton Woods Agreement was the decision to have the US dollar freely convertible into gold and to have the values of other currencies fixed in US dollars. The exchange rates were to be maintained within the 1% on either side of the official parity, with the intervention required as the support points. This required to the United States to maintain a reserve of gold and other countries to maintain reserve of US dollars. Because the initially selected exchange rates could have been incorrect for balance of payments equilibrium, each country was allowed to revise up to 10% within a year of the initial selection of the exchange rate. In this basic form, the system survived until 1971. Let's talk about the device of the Bretton Woods system. In the early post-war period, the US government had to provide dollar reserves to all countries who wanted to intervene in their currency markets. The increasing supply of the dollars worldwide, made available through programs like the Marshall Plan, mean that the credibility of the gold backing of the dollars was in the question. US dollars held abroad grew rapidly, and this represented to a claim on US gold stocks and cast some doubt on the US's ability to convert dollars into gold upon request. Domestic US policies such as the growing expenditure associated with Vietnam result in more printing of dollars to finance expenditure and forced to foreign governments to run up the holdings of dollar reserves. The dollar was overvalued in the 1960s. In 1971, the US government closed the gold window by decree of President Nixon, and the weight moved from a gold standard to dollar standard from Bretton Woods to the Smithsonian Agreement. Growing increase in the amount of dollars printed further eroded faith in the system and the dollar's role as a reserve currency. By 1973, the world had moved to search for a new financial system, one that no longer relied on a worldwide system of pegged exchange rates. We are going to the present system. In the wake of the collapse for the Bretton Woods exchange rate system, the IMF appointed the committee of 20 that suggested for the various options for exchange rates arrangement. Those suggestions were approved at Jamaica during February 1976 and were formally incorporated into next text to the Second Amendment to the Articles of Agreement that came into force from the April 1978. The options were broadly floating independence and managed pegging of currency, crawling peg, targeted zone arrangement. Firstly, floating rate system. In a floating rate system, it is the market forces that determine the exchange rate between two currencies. The advocates of the floating rate system put forth two major arguments. The first one is that the exchange rates varies automatically according to the changes in the macroeconomic variables. As a result, there does not appear any gap between the real exchange rate and the nominal exchange rate. The country does not need any adjustment that is often required in a fixed rate regime, and so it does not have to bear the cost of adjustment. The other is that this system possesses insulation properties, meaning that the currency remains isolated of the shocks emanating from other countries. It also means that the government can adopt an independent economic policy without impinging upon the external sector performance. Next, pegging of currency. Normally, a developing country pegs its currency to a strong currency or to a currency with which it has very large part of its trade. Pegging involves fixed exchange rate with the result that the trade payments are stable. But in case of trade with other countries, stability cannot be guaranteed. This is why pegging to a single currency is not advised if the country's trade is diversified. In such cases, pegging to a basket of currencies is advised. But if the basket is very large, multi-currency intervention may prove costly. Pegging to SDR is not different insofar as the value of the SDR itself is pegged to a basket of 5 currencies. Third one is crawling peg. Again, a few countries have a system of crawling peg. Under this system, they allow the peg to change gradually over the time to catch up with the changes in the market determined rates. It is a hybrid of fixed rate and flexible rate systems. So this system avoids too much of instability and too much of rigidity. Last one, target zone arrangement. In a target zone arrangement, the intra-zone exchange rates are fixed. An opposite example of such an arrangement is the European Monetary Union which was earlier known as European Monetary System. There are the cases where the member countries of a currency union do not have their own currency. Rather, they have a common currency. Under this group come the member of countries of Western Caribbean Currency Union, Western African Economic and Monetary Union, and Central African Economic and Monetary Community. Finally, current international finance system. Where is the international finance system today? The answer to this question revolves around three facts. The dollar is still the principal currency used in international transactions, but its unchallenged dominance as an economic and financial force. And Bretton Woods is dead, but its child, the IMF, has evolved with the times and is more important than ever as a watchdog and arbiter of balance of payments disequilibrium. IMF. It is one of the most important players in the current international financial system. The IMF was created to administer a code of fair exchange practices and provide compensatory financial assistance to member countries with the balance of payments difficulties. The role of the IMF was clearly spelled out in its articles of arrangement. The main features of flexible exchange rate regime. The flexible exchange rates were declared acceptable to the IMF members. The gold was abandoned as an international reserve asset. The currencies are no longer backed by the gold.